Welcome to Talkin Bengals, a Bengals site made by the fans for the fans. Check out Talkin Bengals on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout, and follow Talkin Bengals on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Now, let's join the conversation. Hello and welcome to Talkin Bengals, episode 29. It's going to be better than 28 because we're building, getting better every single week. And this week, man, something that's going to grind my gears, and it's probably going to take up about half the show, Vontaze Burfict suspension. But before we get into that, Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. I'm having a great week this week, Casey. How about you?
Well, I can't complain too much except for about how the NFL rules on suspensions on totally legal hits. So let's just go ahead and jump right into that topic. So Vontaze Burfict, I didn't even realize he was under investigation immediately after, the Chiefs game or whatever, because I remember watching the game and not seeing anything that was, uncharacteristic or illegal or anything questionable at the very least. But apparently somehow Vontaze Burfict got himself a 5-game suspension initially from the NFL for doing what I consider, and the USAA contributing writers consider, and a lot of other people consider, a totally legal hit. It was within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. He did not aim at the head or neck area. He did not throw his face mask or helmet into the player. And he hit him squarely in the chest without launching himself from the ground. I don't understand how this was even considered an illegal hit. And, it burns me up. Nick, what initial thoughts do you have? Don't dive too far, but what initial thoughts do you have on this one?
I mean, initial thoughts is, why in the heck is the NFL even looking at it? Second of all, what? I'm speechless. In case you know me being speechless, dude, didn't happen very often.
Yeah, speechless is not a common thing for you. So the fact that you're just literally at the loss for words just blows my mind. So it brings us to our first point of discussion here. I already made my view on it very plain and clear. Was it a legal hit? Absolutely, it was a legal hit. You can't get any more legal than that. Hit him in the chest with your shoulder. Does the guy need to make sure he's looking at you before you hit him now? I mean, is that what we're going to expect Drake or Patrick to do all season? Okay, receiver, did you catch it? Can you turn around so I can make sure we make eye contact? Is it okay to tackle you, please? Can I tackle you now? No? Okay, run for a touchdown. I don't want to get a penalty. I don't want to get suspended and, massive amount of fines. What is football coming to? Can you not hit people anymore? These are multi-million-dollar athletes. They're getting paid to entertain. That's the only reason they're even there and exist. You got to hit people. That's part of football. You can't have football without hitting people. So the fact that you're calling this an illegal hit just blows my mind. Nick, you think the hit was legal?
Yes, I do believe it was legal. As you mentioned, it was within the 5-yard line. Somebody coming off of the line of scrimmage, coming across the middle, and Burfict hits him. Uses his shoulder, doesn't leave his feet, just literally plants and hits him. Just watched it right before we started the podcast. I don't understand why there is even any form of an investigation on it. I mean, it was clearly at least a yard, if not more, inside of the 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. And what you're looking at would probably start going into our next topic, Casey, and I'll let you start it.
I'm going to kind of reorder it than how we had talked about it before because the appeal is over. Burfict got an appeal. I guess you can say he quasi won the appeal, but not really. The 5 games went down to 3 games. So Cincinnati is going to be without him for 3 games. So with the appeal already being decided, we're moving back into another topic here. Is the NFL have a witch hunt out against Vontaze Burfict? I mean, it seems like he has to walk on eggshells to make sure he doesn't even touch a player, hit a player, anything that could be construed as an illegal hit. It's like he is under a super powerful microscope. I mean, it's not just like, they're kind of looking at him. I mean, if he walks one step out of line, I thought he was going to get suspended for, jumping into the crowd when he got the interception for a touchdown against Washington, which I know is jumping a little bit ahead, but it's unbelievable. I mean, the NFL fines him, punishes him more than any other player, and not all of it's his fault. I mean, some of these are just, oh my gosh, ref, like the one on this. You're really going to call this it wasn't even flagged during the game, and then you're going to suspend him for it? I mean, who's sitting there watching this film of Vontaze Burfict? I guarantee if you watch, other teams, watch some of these other like loudmouth linebackers, tough-nosed linebackers, they're going to be hitting people like that. But is somebody watching them under a microscope? Nope. So there's definitely a witch hunt out, at least in my opinion.
I mean, I agree. There has to be some form of witch hunt for him. I mean, you lower your shoulder and hit somebody the proper way. I mean, legitimately what you're taught in Pee Wee football. Someone comes across the middle, you hit them. You don't let them run free. You hit them. You stop their path. If you get a pass interference, so what? You got a pass interference call in the NFL, you get fined and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, good God. Seriously? Freaking a 5-game suspension that gets brought down to a 3-game suspension? Jesus. If they would have done something like this to Ray Lewis or something like this to Bill Romanowski, of course, with Bill, there was a little bit more there, i.e. performance-enhancing drugs. But getting off topic, I mean, what you're talking about is you're taking football, the game of hitting people, the game of lowering your shoulder and driving through somebody, and you're taking that completely away from football. You might as well just make it flag football or two-hand touch, or whoever can kiss the other person's butt first. I don't know. I mean, Jesus, what are you looking for in football? You got pads on, you got a helmet, and you have all this technology in these helmets and these pads, especially at the professional level, for God's sakes. I mean, what more can you expect from somebody? I mean, somebody trying to play the game and trying to play it the right way, and you're looking at the game film, 2-3 days after the fact. What? I don't understand it.
And so, I mean, that worries me because how is this going to impact the team? I mean, last year, we missed the first 3 games of the season, and that defense is just not the same when he's off the field. And that's been apparent. I mean, Vinny Ray does the best he can, and, he's a good player. He's a solid player, but he's not Vontaze Burfict. He's not even close to being Vontaze Burfict. Like, it's not even in the same equation. I mean, you're talking about a prime backup in Vinny Ray and then a superstar in Vontaze Burfict, one of the best, if not the best linebacker in the NFL. So when you take him out of the equation, you take him away from that defense, you just went from being a dynamic top 5 defense possibly to a mediocre defense. So I don't understand if, maybe it's not just a witch hunt against Vontaze Burfict. Maybe the NFL's got it out for the Bengals. Maybe that's too much conspiracy. I don't know. But really, you're going to suspend him again? I mean, next season, if Vontaze is still with Cincinnati at that point, don't even let him play in the preseason. Don't even put him in the game. Just wait till the regular season. That way, at least he can start the first game of the year. But, Nick, how do you think it's going to impact the Bengals?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's going to impact the Bengals negatively. I mean, he's quite possibly the best linebacker in the NFL right now. I mean, he's a physical guy. He goes out and he hits people. What else do you want from a freaking linebacker? Pardon me. I got a little upset there. But what else do you want from a linebacker? I mean, you expected the same from Ray Lewis. You expected the same from Bill Romanowski. You expected the same from the guys in the early 90s and late 80s all the way back to when football started. What do you expect? I mean, of course it's going to impact the Bengals negatively. I mean, you have a guy who is quite honestly a playmaker. I mean, he's all over the place. He's an animal out there. He's the kind of guy that you want leading your football team on the defensive side. He's that kind of guy because he's going to get things done, and he knows he can get things done, and everybody else knows he's going to get things done, and he's not afraid to go out there and show people that he's going to get things done and have them follow him. He's the type of leader you want on your defense. But I digress, and of course, negative impact.
Well, I don't think we can really say anything else on Vontaze Burfict except for, hey, NFL, you're a bunch of idiots and you need to learn what a legal hit is and actually follow what your rule book says and not just give out suspensions because you're biased against a player. That's profiling, and profiling's wrong. So moving on from that, we're going to talk about a little bit of game recap from the Washington and Cincinnati game. So the starting offense, that first drive looked great. Everything seemed to be firing on all cylinders. Dalton was leading them the way he needs to. The line was holding up. The biggest concern I had with that was, can Andy Dalton throw the ball to anybody else but AJ Green? And that's going to be a concern going forward. Nick, I know we talked about it a little bit. What is your big concern with Andy Dalton and AJ Green?
My biggest concern is that Andy Dalton doesn't know how to throw the ball to anybody else. I mean, how many times did he go to AJ? I don't know the numbers. I haven't pulled them up. But I mean, it seemed like every pass, Andy Dalton throws to AJ Green on the outside. Andy Dalton throws to AJ Green on the inside. Andy Dalton throws to AJ Green. You got to get comfortable with throwing to all the receivers. I mean, you have at least three of them out there at all times. At least with all the Bengals, all their playbook, they have at least three wide receivers, unless they're playing goal line. I mean, quite frankly, you got to throw it to more than just AJ Green. I know he's a superstar. He's great. He's, one of the best receivers, on the field at any given point in time. But good God, you got to throw it to somebody else.
I mean, you're absolutely right, but that's been one of Andy Dalton's MOs throughout his entire career is he picks his target, usually AJ Green. If Tyler Eifert's healthy, a lot of Tyler Eifert. And that's pretty much the people he throws the ball to. He's not very comfortable spreading it around. I mean, think about when AJ Green and Marvin Jones were both out there a few years ago, and there was only Mohamed Sanu. He was very uncomfortable for quite a long time. I mean, he got it together, made things work as people came back and got healthy. But that's what I think ended up getting AJ Green hurt last year. Yeah, he was having the best season of his career. His numbers were outstanding. He was on pace to do so many things. But he's still a human being. He's not a superhero. You can't throw him the ball every single time because that means he's getting hit every single time. That means, the wear and tear on his body is just increasing exponentially every single time you throw him the ball. And not to mention, then Andy Dalton just becomes more reliant on one target. He needs to get comfortable with Tyler Boyd. He needs to get comfortable with John Ross. He needs to get comfortable with, Josh Malone. He needs to get comfortable with all these young guys. And then it also helps the young guys get into a rhythm, feel like they matter, feel like they're not just running routes for their health. So Andy Dalton definitely needs to spread the ball around a little bit more. Joe Mixon needs to hold on to the ball. If you're going to fumble once, that was a great time to fumble. Don't do it again, kid. Let's just actually keep a hold of the ball and run hard. And hopefully the Bengals can emulate and continue to mimic that first drive, because after that first drive, it didn't look as good. But if they could just keep that first drive momentum going and build off that and keep becoming a better team, and I think the starting offense could be okay. Jury's definitely still out. It's the preseason. We got a game tomorrow night and preseason, and the next one is for real. So they just need to be prepping and getting ready. But what do you think of the starting defense, Nick?
The wife was just looking up Vontaze Burfict. She was talking about 22 games that he was either suspended or injured since he's been with the Bengals. I mean, honestly, that goes to prove things. To me, obviously, the Bengals are there's some form of a targeting thing from the NFL. Anyways, back to the starting defense. Vontaze Burfict, obviously, he did great. Pick six, blah blah blah. Did great. The defensive line finally got some pressure on the quarterback. They got 2 sacks. I mean, did great on getting pressure from the outside. The linebackers, obviously with Vontaze in there, obviously you did fairly decent. What I'm looking at more or less is the cornerbacks. I think we're going to be kind of weak unless there's some progression with the cornerbacks. So maybe zone coverage, we should be all right. But when you go one-on-one with any of the dominant receivers in the league, I think that we're going to be hurting. But, I mean, D-line and linebackers, some form of optimism. And then when you look at the DBs, there's room for improvement. a lot of improvement.
I mean, I think the starting defense had some promise there. I liked seeing the pass rushman. Carl Lawson is just a monster out there. He's a machine. He's trying to get after the ball, and he's taking the quarterback down. He did have that where he jumped off sides, caused a little bit of issue there. Gave him a free set of downs. But to be honest with you, he's young. He's a rookie, and he likes seeing a rookie who is just energized and wants to go after people. So you can't really blame him too much. You can't be like going, oh, no, you can't do that, this, that, or whatever, because you know what? He's getting after the ball. He's trying to make things happen. He's not just sitting there on the side. And that seemed to be a theme for a lot of the defensive line against the Redskins. They were just playing tough. They're playing hard, and, they're getting a little bit more pass rush than normal. They're playing a little bit better than normal. And that's good. That's what you want to see. You want to see these guys just getting better and stronger and faster. And, I mean, there's another person that, a lot of people probably aren't thinking about that much because, he was just signed for pretty much nothing. And that was Chris Smith. I thought Chris Smith has been, getting after the quarterback. And that's what he was drafted to do initially by, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Jacksonville. But he just didn't quite have a good career with them. But he's getting after it. Maybe he's not going to be that every single down defensive end, but he could still get in there and play. He could still, make an impact on obvious passing downs and just, be that bull rush kind of guy to put pressure on the quarterback, which is something we desperately need between him and Lawson. We could definitely use some of that pass rush. We could definitely use, these guys doing what they need to do. And so I think starting a defense overall, as far as the pass rush, the linebackers with Vontaze Burfict, I feel very comfortable. Without Vontaze Burfict, the secondary is definitely a big concern. You're now down to your backup safety, strong safety, free safety. They're both out. You're down to your backups. I've never been sold on Drake Kirkpatrick as a shutdown corner. I think he's an above-average corner, but he's definitely not shut down. And we're waiting to see if any of our younger guys, as far as our defensive backs can step up and play well. I'm just still not sold on that either. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, Adam Jones is going to be out there quite a bit. William Jackson III will be out there. Darqueze Dennard, who knows? I mean, he's fallen down the depth chart really far at this point. And who knows who's even going to make the roster as far as, the cornerbacks go. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But, I mean, I think there's definitely some promise of potential with the starting defense. But once again, it's kind of like the offense. The jury's still out. I'm not 100% sold. But on to the backup offense. What is up with the Bengals just driving down the field and stalling in the red zone? We saw Andy Dalton do it the first week. We saw A.J. McCarron do it in this game. And Driscoll did it the same way. It's like they drive down there and then stalled. To me, that's very frustrating. Nick, you got any other thoughts on the backup offense?
I mean, other than the stalling, I mean, they moved the ball well. I mean, A.J. McCarron and God, I can never remember the guy's name. Is it Driscoll? Okay, we'll go with Driscoll.
Yep, Driscoll. Yeah, third string.
I mean, they at least moved the ball halfway decent. A.J. McCarron made some poor choices. Obviously, he was throwing the pick. But, I mean, you're going to have that from a backup until they get real playing time. They're going to make poor decisions because they don't really get all that repetition. But with the backups, I didn't really see too many problems. There was a couple poor decisions that were made, but at the same time, I mean, you have the backups on the other side playing just as much, and it's just like playing the first string against first string. In the second half, and you have the second string and the second string playing. So it's it's a real football game, and they're all out there competing. So I don't know. I'll just go ahead and go with the backup defense as well, just for time purposes case. I mean, the backup defense didn't really see anything too standoutish in my eyes, but I don't know. Maybe you saw something a little bit different. I just thought they were mediocre. Casey?
I mean, I agree. Like I said, I talked about the quarterbacks and the backup offense. That was my main point there. But other than like I said, Chris Smith, when he's getting in there, he's impressed me a little bit, like pretty good going after the quarterback. But yeah, the backups on the defense, nobody's like standing out as, that monster guy other than Chris Smith. I don't see anybody else being like, wow, this guy needs to be in the game. He should be playing more. He needs to step up and be, part of the starting defense, not starting offense. Goodness, we're not that bad off. But that's pretty much all I saw from the backups. Not a whole lot of anything too impressive worth talking about, and backups are just starting to go to the back burner until we get to our preview for this next upcoming game. We're going to move on to trades and injury updates. So there was a trade, which it seems like the Bengals are getting into a lot of trades, which they used to never do. Marquise Flowers was traded to New England for a 7th-round pick. Okay. I mean, now the Bengals are down 2 linebackers. Not that Flowers was, the most talented player, but he was another solid backup. So what does this mean for the Bengals going forward, Nick? What do you think?
I mean, we're gonna have to do with what we got. I mean, it's quite frankly a difficult situation that the Bengals have put themselves in, and who day, but I mean, you're not going to who day until you have solid backups at the linebacker position, because in today's day and age, you're not going to have linebackers that can play every down. So you're looking at a 7th-round pick for probably a 3rd or 4th-round pick. I think we got a bad end of the deal on that one.
Yeah, I have to double check what round he was drafted in, but I don't know what. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Maybe that'll be the second coming of Tom Brady, drafted in the 7th round. Who knows? But the only other thing with the injury update is that Cedric Pearman right now is the big one. He's now been moved to the IR. I don't think he's on the IR return, just the straight up IR. So that's going to end his season. So solid special teamer, not really much on the offensive side of the ball, but a solid special teamer. He was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago as special teams, and he was a captain on special teams. So, said Pearman, going to miss you this season. Enjoy standing on the sideline the best you can, rehab quickly, and hopefully you come back and still make an impact on special teams. But that's quick, easy, breezed over. And now we're on to roast it or boast it. And I know there's a couple topics that you're going to have very big opinions on. So without further ado, let's jump into the first one here. Will get cut. Roasted or boasted?
I'm going to roast that. I don't think that Jake Elliott will get cut. Typically when Bengals draft kickers, they generally keep them. They wouldn't have drafted him if they didn't want to keep him, and they, quite frankly, drafted him a little high. So I'm gonna roast that. I think they will keep Jake Elliott, and they'll either put Bullock on waivers, or I don't know, do something with him, but they'll keep Jake Elliott. But Casey, back to that Marquise Flowers. He was drafted in the 6th round in 2014. He was picked number 212.
All right, so your facts were pretty close on that one. I'll give you credit. But I'm actually going to go back to the Jake Elliott thing, and I'm going to boast it. Not that I'm happy about it. I don't think that's the right move. He's young. He just needs a little bit of time. But Randy Bullock has not missed a kick. No matter how ugly it has looked coming off of his foot, he did not miss a kick yet in the preseason. He hit a pretty, 51-yarder last week against Washington. So I feel like he's just, he's the one making the kicks. He doesn't look as nervous. Because Elliott, when he missed that kick, he just looked nervous. And unfortunately, the NFL doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to get through. So I don't think they're going to keep Jake Elliott around. Maybe they'll put him on waivers, see if he's still available. But I don't think they're going to put a guy out there who's missed field goals. Now, I do think if the Bengals have an opportunity in this week's game against the Colts to, kick field goals, you'll probably see a lot of Jake Elliott. Because they're going to be like, okay, kid, either you can make these or you're done. And so we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But when you have a kicker who's not missed any field goals, hit a 50-plus yarder for a guy who is, now missed a field goal, struggled a little bit in training camp. So I just don't see them keeping the struggling kicker and getting rid of the guy that's not missed a field goal. Moving on to the next topic of roasted or boasted, Josh Malone will make the active roster, and I'll take this one first. I think he will. I absolutely will boast that. I think he's going to make the active roster. I think Cody Core is going to be on the outside looking in on this one. And, maybe he'll put on the practice squad. That'd be weird after being on the active roster. But I just don't think Core's done enough. I mean, he had a chance to get a touchdown in the last game, and he just dropped it. I mean, that was a ball that should have been catchable. You got to make a play on that, or else how are you going to expect to get a paycheck in the NFL? You have one job as a receiver. That's to catch the ball. So the fact that he failed to catch the ball and he's not really made much of an impact in the preseason, he was pretty good. And I know I was big hyped on him in the offseason thinking, this is going to be a guy who could be your number 2 receiver. You added John Ross, Josh Malone, and people to the mix. When I was looking at Brandon LaFell, Tyler Boyd, I was like, I don't know, maybe Core's got a chance. But he's just not come out and proven it, and he's had the injury bug still been getting him. So I think Josh Malone will make the active roster.
Casey, I like you. And I think there's a reason why I like you. It's because I agree with you on this.
Because I'm good looking, right?
Well, we think similarly. Not exactly, but similarly. And I do think Josh Malone will make the team. Quite frankly, I mean, he's been catching the ball that's been coming to him. Even the balls that were poorly thrown at him, he still caught them. If I'm not mistaken, he's got the only receiving touchdown for the Bengals in the preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, he catches the ball. It's plain and simple. I mean, you're looking at other receivers that they're just not catching the ball when it comes to them. It slips through their fingers, or the ball will hit them in the hands and they'll get hit and they'll drop the ball. I mean, Josh Malone's just catches the ball. Reminds me of somebody, but I don't want to compare it to him just yet. But I don't know. I say he will make the active roster, so boast it.
All right, so we're talking about Vontaze Burfict being suspended for 3 games, talking about Marquise Flowers being traded. Will the Bengals try to sign another linebacker prior to the start of the season? Nick, roast or boasted?
That's a boast. I mean, you'd be stupid not to pick up another freaking linebacker. Pardon my language again. Sorry. God forgive me. Lord, I apologize. Send me the stars and the pygmies in the guinea. I mean, but seriously, dude, I mean, you'd be dumb if you don't pick up another linebacker. I mean, you have a linebacker that's out on suspension. You're going to have you already just gave up a solid backup. I mean, you just don't have, the backups there right now to cover linebacker position. It doesn't matter if you let all the remaining linebackers make the cut and keep Burfict out for those 3 games and not add him to the roster at that time. I mean, you're still not going to have enough guys. You have to pick up another linebacker, and the Bengals would be stupid if they don't.
I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to roast it. I don't think they're going to pick up anybody. I think this, opens the door for Carl Lawson to get on the field more. I think that's honestly what we're going to see happen. He's just going to get the opportunity to play and, maybe make an impact. Maybe he can actually be that, that outside linebacker in the starting role here pretty soon. Because Benny Ray, he's going to be your middle linebacker for Burfict. He's going to be subbing in there for Burfict. And that's just what's going to happen. He's going to be the guy that subs in. So it's just going to open the door for the young guys, and it's going to give them an opportunity to really prove themselves. And we'll just get to see how well they play. We'll get to see if they can step up and be that guy. But that's going to move us into our prediction/final thoughts and game preview. So this week, it's week 4 of the preseason, which is not a very fun week to watch if you want to see starters. But if you want to see guys literally playing for their NFL careers, this is a great week to watch. These are the last few roster spot decisions that are, these guys are trying to plead their case. Go out there and say, I'm the right guy for this job. I can play special teams. I could step up if the starter gets hurt. Please put me on your team. So it'll be interesting to watch, and it's tomorrow night, and unfortunately, it's not being covered anywhere on national television, so I'm going to have to wait and watch the replay of it. But, I think it's going to be an interesting game. Just for the backups point is, Driscoll going to make the team? Is McCarron going to go somewhere else? I really doubt it. But, these are the storylines you got to look at. Who's going to be the last one in? Who's going to be the first one out? So, in this kind of game where, you're not going to see a whole lot, if any, of the starters – I'm going to call this one 16-13 Bengals over the Colts. And then I'm going to say my final thoughts for this is thank goodness it is the last week of the preseason and we can get to real football and we can get ourselves out of limbo. Good, bad, or indifferent, at least we're going to know what this football team is like for real after this week. Nick, what's your final thoughts, predictions, and preview?
I think this week is just absolute BS, to be quite honest with you. There's no reason why you should have a fourth preseason game and just have backups in it. And that's something that you can figure out in your first three games if you really want to figure out who's going to start and who's not, who's going to be the backups and who's not, and who's going to perform and who's not. There's other ways of doing it. You can do 7-on-7s, 9-on-9s. You can do interior line drills. You can do linebacker drills, shed drills, all that fun stuff that we used to do in high school, Case. Frankly, I'm not very excited about looking back at this next game. If I had to make any kind of predictions, I'll probably say like it's going to be like 10-7. I'm not going to give any team or the other, but the score is probably going to be around like 10-7. It's not going to be a very high scoring game because you're going to have backups in. I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't really like this fourth game being all backups. I don't like it. I wouldn't like it even if it was, all starters. I just think the fourth game is just stupid. But I digress. Final thoughts for the season. I'll go in and say that so that way you can go into yours and finish it up, Case. Final thoughts. I can't wait for the season to start just to see what we have. We know what we're going to have when Burfict comes back. We're going to have a guy who dominates as a linebacker. You're going to have a guy who goes out and leads the defense. Also, you're going to have a guy at our running back position with Joe Mixon, who's an athlete, and I cannot wait to see what Joe Mixon can do. And just, I don't know. I mean, to see John Ross perform at 100% with A.J. Green on the field, to see if Dalton can spread the ball around. I mean, it's a whole bunch of unknowns at this point, but I don't know. You got to have that optimistic, cautious optimism is what you would like to say, right?
Yep, cautious optimism is the way to go at this point in the season. So I'm going to continue with that cautious optimism, and I already gave my final thoughts. So that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Let's get rid of this last preseason game. Let's look on to the regular season. Hoo-day.
Hoo-day.